All right. Let's go ahead and call the Senate back to order. Sergeant at Arms will secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber, thankfully, a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now back in session. Let's go ahead
Mr.
and,
President.
yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 35th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to have in the gallery above the Senate President a couple friends that have been my friends since I was probably a little boy, David and Michelle Hopkins, and they brought a couple of their friends with them today. Stand up, let everybody. So, as a teenager working there in Harford County, I got to work for him on his farm. I milked cows for him. I helped him with produce. And now their family has a farm brewery, Hopkins Farm Brewery in Harford County. We'd love for you to, when you're in Harford County, to come check that out. But just a wonderful, wonderful mentor, and I'm just so pleased that they're able to come down and see a little bit of the Maryland State Senate live in action. So let's give them another warm Senate welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for joining. Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sometimes when it gets hard to see your family, you bring your family to you. So I'd like to introduce my family here today, my wife, Joanna, my son, Eli, my son, Harry, and my daughter, Kate, in the gallery above the President.
Welcome, welcome. We're so pleased that you're here. Welcome. All right, we do have one quick Rules Committee re-referral. This is report number 11. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 1005, Delegate Smith, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Community Violence Prevention Services, re-referred to Finance.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Chair of Rules.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules Committee did meet right after session this morning, and we do approve of the items that have just been mentioned.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The re-referred to the appropriate standing committees. All right. We have a message from the House. Clerk will read the message.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates has voted to override the governor's veto of House Bill 937. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right. Message having been read is ordered journalized. The question before the body is on HB 937. Shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections for the Chief Executive? Just very briefly, so this did have a cloture motion. So there were about 2 minutes and 50 seconds left on the opponent side, about 20 minutes left on the proponent side. We're going to hold those time limits, but for those who wish to explain their vote, we will permit an explanation of vote for those members who may wish to explain their vote afterwards, assuming that the time may be expired on either side. So with that, on the bill, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Did you say 215 or 250?
250.
Oh, great. Got a lot of time.
Yeah, right.
I was cutting it close.
Fair enough.
Senator
may proceed.
Thank you. My main opposition is that this bill creates an army of less qualified personnel to perform late-term abortions, which is funded by taxpayers with no assurances of safety for women. In 1992, most Marylanders thought they were just voting for abortion rights and didn't realize the extremes buried within the law. Existing law authorizes late-term abortions for basically any reason, and this bill expands the access to late-term abortions. For the sake of debate, I will concede the very rare abortions for health of the mother and rape and incest. Let's talk about the 99% of all late-term abortions that are performed on viable babies. Viable meaning the baby can survive on its own without the support of the mother. These babies are willing, wanting, and waiting to get on with their life. Maryland law recognizes the value of life for viable babies. In criminal law, a person can be charged for 2 murders involving a pregnant woman. Also this year, Budget and Tax voted unanimously to recognize the value of an unborn baby by giving a tax credit to a viable baby that was stillborn. But yet, at the same time, we are being asked to train more providers who can perform late-term abortions on innocent, beautiful, and viable babies without any consideration or protection for their life. What makes one viable baby's life more valued than another? What gives us the right to act as judge and jury to authorize life or death? Who are we to say life must be warm and fuzzy to grant life? We cannot continue to turn a blind eye on late-term abortions and those viable babies that are full of life and can live independently. This bill expands the license to kill the most vulnerable, viable, and capable of life in our society. Every life is precious to God, as He is the creator and sustainer of life. God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." History has shown simply making something legal does not make it morally right. At a bare minimum, expanding an army to perform late-term abortions is wrong and should be rejected. My question to this body is, who will stand up with these innocent, viable babies who can live on their own? Who will be the voice for the most pure of humanity? We must look at the totality of this bill and recognize, among other things, it greatly expands providers that can perform late-term abortions, and for that alone, I will be voting to sustain the governor's veto.
Thank you, Senator. All right, that expires the time on the opponent side. Are there any proponents who wish to speak? Chair recognizes Senator from District 10.
Yes. Colleagues, there are no valid statistics anywhere to show that late-term abortions are frequent and that they are being done in Maryland on fully formed fetuses just because. Occasionally, the mother's life might depend on whether the fetus can survive and go to term, or the fetus itself sometimes has died and is still in utero. And for reasons like that, again, it wouldn't make sense to ignore the situation medically. To be honest, what is important, and we're hearing from our colleague that there are plenty of providers and that there's nothing amiss and we just need do nothing. But in reality, most Maryland counties have, at this time, not a single abortion provider. And one of the purposes of this legislation is to guarantee that providers that have the training and for which it is within their scope of practice can be available in Maryland, so that a person who needs to have an abortion and has a valid reason for seeking one doesn't have to have the fetus go much later in term before the abortion or the operation could occur. We don't want to force someone who really has a medical reason or a psychological reason, or the fetus is ill-formed or has died in utero, to need to wait around because we don't have sufficient people. As you recall, abortion has been legal in Maryland since 1991, but we limited at that time to just physicians. However, practice and medical science has grown significantly since that time, and many of the providers who are managing pregnancies, successful pregnancies to term in Maryland, are nurse practitioners, midwives, and others who right now, because of the way we passed the law in 1991, are just legally not able to do the abortion, although they have the training. So if it's within the scope of practice and the person is licensed to do it, this legislation would help it to occur legally and with medical criteria that makes sense. I won't say more, but I know it's agonizing to any woman or child. And remember, we're talking also about 10 and 12-year-old children sometimes who are victims of incest and rape. And in cases like that, they shouldn't have to. I can't imagine a child being forced to try to carry a fetus to term, physically or psychologically, what it would do to them and their future if they were trying to have one. And finally, then to do what one Supreme Court justice's wife suggested, just put it up for adoption. Can you imagine a 10, and she was talking about 10 and 11-year-old children who are victims of incest or rape. Most of them aren't going to be sitting around with a lawyer to help plan and finding somebody who wants to adopt. And I don't know that many persons in our country or abroad who are seeking a child who has been born as the result of incest or rape to another child as the child that they would hope to look for. People are particular. I won't say more, but we all know we voted right the first time, and let's uphold the work that has been done and make sure that people who find themselves in this situation have access to medical services that are needed in Maryland and in a timely way. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question before the body. Shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the chief executive? A green vote will override the governor's veto. A red vote will sustain. Without further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 6 has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all know this has been a hard vote. We know that we all have opinions. And we all know that to some people, they think they know exactly what we need to do in a bill form when we constantly change things as an amendments. But I have to say this: I will honor God before I honor man. I will honor God in everything that he says through his word, and I will honor God more than anything else, and not just be right, but God, I know that I am so far from perfect, but I look at the eyes of God and I try to do things that are righteous and not just right. And I believe with all my heart that when I pray about things and I ask God for his guidance, I ask it from him and only from him, because I know he leads me the right way. And all I can say is this, that we all are accountable for our votes. And what we do, we know in our heart what is right. And I believe in my heart, this is the right vote for me, and it is red. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from the 38th District has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you ask the question, what is Maryland known for, it starts right here in Annapolis, the oldest working state capital in the country. We're known for our Maryland flag, by far the best in the United States of America. We're the old line state and the free state. We're all proud of our Maryland state symbols, the Baltimore Oriole, the skipjack, the blue crab, and of course, Smith Island cake, to name a few. But HB 937, Maryland becomes even better known of having among the very most liberal, expansive abortion laws in the nation. We open up Maryland so all kinds of providers can perform abortions instead of physicians. We have no limits, so these providers can perform abortions right up to birth. We have no safeguards, no parental notification for minors 13 and under, no requirement to give basic information, a mental health services checklist to women who have had an abortion and may be showing signs of distress after their abortion. Not even a requirement that life-saving care would be provided if a baby were born during a botched abortion. Speaking on behalf of my constituents, we don't want Maryland to be known to be a far-reaching, expansive abortion law that endangers the health and lives of women with no guardrails or safeguards for these women, minors, parents, or even for those babies that are born alive. I'm proud to be a Marylander and humbled to represent my constituents in the Maryland Senate, but I am not proud of this Maryland expansive abortion bill, and I am not proud of Maryland becoming known as an abortion destination.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate the passion of my friend from Baltimore, but I don't want to talk about religion. I don't want to talk about God. I want to talk about science. One of the first times I was in the Finance Committee with our good chairwoman, she said there's no published reports. There's no peer-reviewed material. That's not true. We had several studies here on the floor. Number two, if a child dies in utero and a doctor removes it, it's not abortion. Let's get our facts straight. We can have our opinions, but facts are facts. And one of the most important issues of why we need to reject this bill is the insurance issue. So with Medicaid abortions, we're using our tax dollars to pay for abortionists to remove the child. Now we're going to expand it so our health insurance premiums are going to be used to pay for these procedures. Mr. President, not well written, not well conceived, nothing about pain-capable children, which is that late-term abortion issue. I encourage all my peers to vote red on this override. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, it does us no good to argue the extremes to avoid the real essence of this discussion. We're not talking just the 11-year-olds that are pregnant. We're not talking just the rape and incest. We're talking in general. And to say, well, I can't talk in general because I can't move beyond these tough cases. We're just going to stop the discussion there. That's wrong. We need to look deeper into this. We need to be a people that stands for life. And we've all been there and held those little precious hands of that baby that's an hour old. We've all seen that. We know how beautiful and precious that life is, and it was just as beautiful and precious in the months preceding the birth. We know how beautiful and glorious that is. And as we look at a state that's really being rocked by violence, and a country, and even in a world that's rocked by violence, what really stands us apart as a people ought to be that we stand for life, the beauty of life, the majesty of life. And we don't have that discussion. We don't look at really addressing our respect for the most precious and vulnerable of life. And we stop that discussion by saying, but what about these hard cases? What about these tough cases? I can't open that door because I can't move beyond those tough cases. Folks, we got to open that door. We got to look deeper into this matter. We can't just close it because there was some tough cases that we had trouble dealing with. Those are called exceptions. The law is full of those. But to just close the door from the beginning without recognizing just the beauty and majesty that every one of those little fingers represents and how precious they are, each one in the sight of God, and ought to be in our sights, not just from the moment that birth occurs, but in the months preceding.
Senator's time has expired. Thank you, Senator. Clerk will take the call. With 29 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 937 will pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive. The clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate of Maryland has voted to override the Governor's veto of House Bill 937. Said bill is returned to the House herewith, having been enacted under Article 2, Section 17 of the Constitution of Maryland by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the...
Message having been read is ordered adopted. All right, Senators, the desk is clear. Desk is clear. So thank you. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. We had one rest day and then one long day. So, you know, I don't think it'll be that long, though. I mean, we get a lot finished. We're going to come in at noon. Let's see if there are any voting sessions before the noon. Finance?
We do have a few things to vote on, so about 11:15 for finance voting.
11:15 for finance, education, health, environmental affairs.
Mr. President, if members of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs can come in at 11:30 on Monday, that'd be great.
11:30 on Monday. Chair, budget tax?
Noon start.
At noon.
11:30.
11:30. 11:30 for budget and tax. Judicial proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. 10:30 for JPR.
Ooh, 10:30. 10:30. All right. Last big day. Last big day. All right. Any other announcements? Yes. Educational Environmental Affairs.
Personal privilege.
Oh, Senator may proceed.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you. I rise on a point of personal privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, in expectation of debate and veto override, I had comments prepared on climate change. But alas, we don't need them, so I will not put you through any pain and suffering. That's the first applause I've had all session. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, legislatures, including ours, sometimes we tell the public, and we have to catch up to the public. There are other times we lead the public. So today I want to do something somewhat out of character, and that is I want to thank the governor of the state of Maryland. I want to thank the governor of the state of Maryland. I've now said it twice. His action, regardless of the motivation, objectively endorses the action this legislature has taken. Our legislature, the House and Senate, passed a bill that joins the demands of the public, or maybe leads the demands, depending how you see it. And the governor endorsed our action. Not signing it allows it to go into law. So however we describe it, however we put lipstick on it, yesterday the governor endorsed the action of this legislature that decided to take the lead on climate change, and I publicly want to thank him for whatever the motivation. It affirms our action. Thank you, Governor.
All right. There's a way to end. All right. Let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? So the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Monday, April 11th at 12 p.m.
12 p.m. Without objection, so ordered. Have a wonderful rest day until the last day.